When you think of the Roman Empire, what comes to mind? Legions, gladiators, maybe giant aqueducts, right? But what if I told you their greatest weapon wasn't a sword at all? No, it was a series of, well, secret money tricks that turned a tiny village into a global superpower. And we're about to pull back the curtain on all of them.
And this quote, man, it just nails it. Rome's incredible power wasn't just built on what they conquered. It was built on a mastery of economic manipulation. It was built on secrets that let them fund an empire that, honestly, should have been impossible.
And this was their big idea, their core philosophy. See, long before anyone else, the Romans figured out that real power wasn't just about how much gold you had, but about how much gold people thought you had. They basically weaponized the psychology of wealth itself. So how in the world did they pull it off? Well, their first and probably most brilliant trick was a kind of financial engineering. They figured out how to manipulate their own money to create wealth from thin air, and they did it centuries before paper currency was even a thing.
The secret all came down to a process called currency debasement. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's a deceptively simple idea with a huge impact. It's a quiet, sneaky way to expand the money supply without anyone really noticing, at least not at first.
Okay, so let's walk through how it worked. You take a coin that's supposed to be pure silver, right? The denarius. You melt it down, you mix in a bunch of cheaper junk metal like copper, and then bam, you mint a whole bunch of new coins. Each one still says denarius on it, so it looks legit to the average person. But Rome just printed money out of nothing.
And you can see just how far they took this trick right here. In the early days of the empire, a denarius was pretty much pure silver, like 95%. Fast forward to the mid-empire, and whoa, it's down to 50%. And by the late empire, get this, it was only 5% silver. They were running the empire on fumes, systematically watering down their own money to pay for everything.
But, messing with coins, that was just one piece of the puzzle. Rome designed this massive, incredibly intricate system to make sure the entire empire wasn't just a territory, but a self-funding machine, constantly pumping wealth back to the capital.
And let me tell you, they thought of everything. The lands they conquered, they were taxed to pay for the very soldiers occupying them. Genius, right? Every ship that docked in a Roman port paid a tariff. They even controlled monopolies on essentials like salt, so everyone had to buy it from the state. It was a masterclass in squeezing every last drop of wealth from the system.
And if that wasn't enough, Rome also turned debt into a weapon. The super rich would lend money to regular folks at these crushing interest rates. When people couldn't pay, and they often couldn't, their farms and homes were seized. This meant land and wealth got concentrated in the hands of a few powerful families. Debt became this silent chain, binding the people to the interests of the powerful.
But the most profitable scheme of all, this is where it gets really wild. They treated war not as some necessary evil or a huge expense, but as a business. This is where Rome's financial genius and its military power came together to create something truly unstoppable.
I mean, really think about that question. It changes how you see everything about Roman conquest. For them, launching a campaign was like a calculated investment. Before a single soldier marched, you can bet they were estimating the potential return on investment from the lands they were about to take over.
And the returns? They were absolutely staggering. They didn't just conquer, they liquidated assets. Gold and silver went straight to the treasury. People were captured and sold as slaves for immediate cash. Land was seized. And the defeated nations, they were forced to pay a yearly tribute, forever. War didn't just pay for itself, it turned a massive profit.
So you see, every single victory wasn't just a win on the battlefield. It was like a massive cash injection directly into the Roman economy. This is what allowed emperors to fund those huge building projects, hand out free grain, and put on those spectacular games. It kept the population happy, all paid for by the spoils of war.
But here's the thing about a system built on tricks and conquest. It can't last forever. The very tools that fueled Rome's unbelievable rise would, in the end, plant the seeds of its own spectacular collapse, leaving behind a lesson for all of history.
And you can see how it all fell apart, almost like a series of dominoes. All that constant coin debasement, it led to runaway inflation, and people lost all trust in their money. The heavy taxes, they sparked revolts all over the empire. And all that concentrated wealth, it just fueled corruption. The whole engine just collapsed under its own enormous weight. So you might be thinking, okay, that's ancient history, why does it matter today? Well, it's because these tricks never really went away. Rome's currency debasement looks a lot like modern inflationary policies, right? Their state monopoly on salt isn't so different from today's fights over strategic resources. And the use of debt and war for economic gain, well, that's a story that's still being written. The playbook hasn't changed as much as you think.
At the end of the day, Rome's story is this timeless, powerful lesson. It proves that military strength is only half the battle. True, lasting power comes from understanding and controlling the invisible financial forces that shape our world. The Romans didn't just master warfare, they mastered money. And in doing so, they didn't just conquer nations, they wrote the instruction manual for every empire that would follow.